Good evening, everyone. I'm Stitches, and welcome to Raising the Game. Um, just a quick recap of what we covered off last week. Last week, I was talking to you about grassroots, talking about where the journey begins for most footballers, talking about the enjoyment, the coaching, the difference between grassroots and academy, team culture versus academy culture, some of the mistakes we as parents make during development. We covered off quite a lot, right? But this week, I want to talk to you about, from a parent's perspective, obviously, about scouting and the difference that makes, how players get spotted, what are scouts looking for, all from a parent's perspective. And what we decided to do, or what I decided to do, is to take this into a two-part series and a mini series within the Raising the Game um, streams. What I wanted to do was, this week I'm going to talk to you as a parent, having been on that side of the game. That's where my experience is. Having gone through it with my two boys, I want to talk to you about scouting from a parent's perspective. And then next week, part two, I'm going to bring in a special guest who is an official Premier League Academy scout. And I'm going to get the Academy Scouts version of what's going on. So let's talk about that moment when you hear that there might be a scout watching a game that your child is partaking in. I can tell you from a parent's perspective, everything changes, especially for the parent. Not so much for the kids, unless you expose them to that, and you let them know that that's taking place. But you don't know what they're looking for, so all kinds of things are running through your mind. Does your child need to be on the score sheet? Are they only looking for the goal scorer? Are they looking for the biggest, strongest, fastest kid on the pitch? Or are they looking for something completely different? So, in this episode today, I'm going to explore with you what that looks like from a parent's perspective. So, what is the starting point? Well, the common challenge is, I think, parents' assumptions. There's often an assumption that scoring the goals guarantees that the scouts are going to be looking at your child. If your child is the one putting the ball in the back of the net, there's an assumption that we all make naturally that that's what scouts are looking for. So very often it can lead to parents putting pressure on their child to get on the score sheet. Um, Sometimes parents will, when we're discussing it on the side, we'll talk about, are they looking for the biggest, fastest, strongest kids? Now, in the beginning, when I first started on this journey or embarked on this journey with my kids, I had a mental, because I'd been involved in football before, as I said, as a coach, myself, having done my FA level one badge, and I was coaching for a couple of years, being someone that played football. I always thought that that scouts were out there looking for the most technically gifted kid. I thought they're out there looking for that kids that can manipulate the ball better than everyone else around them. Having been in the game, right? I know, talking to parents on the side, we all have a bunch of things that we're thinking about. Me personally, I always thought to myself that there are three areas that my child has to be influenced in the game, and that's scoring goals, stopping goals, or creating goals. Now, over the years, that has changed slightly, right? That has changed in the regards that I've seen what I rate as kids that are doing all three things get overlooked. And what I would also say is, depending what age your child is, that changes. So, what scouts are looking for at under eights, under sevens to recruit into pre academy very often isn't what they start looking for as children progress through the academy, or as they get into youth phase or into the professional game. So, what do I mean by that? So, I would say that at the youngest ages, my boys were considered technically advanced in their age group. They had the ability to manipulate the ball. They were very good at controlling the ball. They were very good at finding other players in advanced areas, retaining the ball under pressure, being able to express themselves and do tricks. Very strong in a 1v1. So all of these things, I think, stood them in good stead. So two different journeys. My older boy, Jaden Ray, he was spotted very, very early because he didn't go into grassroots, as I've mentioned before. He was spotted very, very early because his technical ability was high. and then he got a lot of opportunities as a result. Inversely, with the younger son, he started even earlier because he was doing what Harvey was doing at an earlier age as well. But because of the doors that Jaden had opened and because of the people that we knew in the game, what I found, which was really interesting, was that Harvey was getting opportunities earlier than Jay had. Almost like your older brother's already shown us what he's capable of. So if you're his younger brother, you're going to get an opportunity. So let's call that sibling privilege. That definitely happened. Sibling privilege will get you opportunities to be seen by the right scouts because they're already looking out for the fact that your older brother has a bit of talent. It's sound to think that the younger son will have a bit of talent as well. So that was interesting. So Harvey was invited into advanced development centers. He was invited into pre-academy really, really early. I think it also helped that he was very technically gifted. He also had a lot of aggression in how he played, which they love. And he's also very athletic in that age. So he was considered one of the really bright young kids coming through at a younger age. Now, with Jaden, once he got into the academy, what I noticed was that what they recruited suddenly changed. The profile changed. Now, it stands to reason that an academy will recruit a bunch of boys, and then you would think that they would start looking at where there are flaws or gaps or where they need to strengthen, which is natural. However, if I take Jaden Ray's journey as an example, in the 3 years that he was at foundation phase within the academy system, what we saw was a complete transition of the team from an emphasis on technical ability and players who were able to retain the ball and do things with the ball, regardless of size, in the particular academy that he was involved in. They started recruiting on physicality. They started looking at boys who were big, strong, and quick. And speaking to some of the staff in those academy, it became very apparent that they didn't really emphasize much on technical ability or understanding of the game. In fact, what they focus on is, can you cover the ground? Because as you can imagine, starting at under eights, going into under nines, going into under 10s, under 11s, the size of the game changes. You go from playing 6v6 to playing 7v7 to eventually playing 9v9 before eventually getting to 11-a-side games. At each of those stages, the pitch increases in size. So academy, or the academy that we were involved in, started looking at for boys who had the athletic ability, regardless of their technical ability. Obviously, you need a standard of technical ability, but it didn't need to be elite. They just felt that they could get you in if you were an athlete and they can train you. Well, that's what I got from a parent's perspective. That's what I got from conversations that I had with their staff in terms of what they're trying to recruit for and what they're looking for. And it stands to reason. You know, of a squad of 20 plus players recruited at under nines, I think of the original batch, there's probably about 2 or 3 players left in that squad. And they're now at foundation, youth phase. So that tells me a lot. Now, with my younger boy, with Harvey Ray, similar thing, except I'm now older and wiser. So I now understand that in his training program, there's a level of athleticism and athletic and physical conditioning that needs to be put into him from a young age in order to remain within the system or to be considered. Because academies aren't only looking for players, as far as I'm concerned, scouts aren't just out there scouting for players based on ability, technical ability, let's say. They're looking at them in terms of their physical conditioning. They're looking at them in terms of their size. They're looking at them in terms of strength, right? They are even, and I know people think it's a myth, but I think it's factual, because when you sign at academy, they ask you the parents' heights. They ask for your father's height and the mother's height. So they are already looking over the horizon, trying to predict into the future how big a child is going to be. And it's really interesting because a lot of the boys that you see in academy are big, physically big players. And, you know, there are boys there who have amazing technical ability with their size. But what you see is an abundance of athletes who aren't necessarily footballers, in my opinion, right? They are just people who are athletically gifted. And the thought process in academies is that they can teach these players how to play, right? So that's something that I've seen as a parent. That's something that I've seen very often. I'm actually got to the point now where I can go and watch a game and I can point out to you who the scouts are going to be looking for. They are looking for the boys that are dominating physically, able to just get from A to B very quickly, able to carry the ball over a distance. And the ability to carry a ball over distance at foundation and youth phase very often isn't just reliant on technical ability, it's reliant on power. If a child is able to run with the ball and other kids are bouncing off them and they're able to dominate in that way, I can guarantee you that scouts will want to talk to this kid. They will want to talk to this kid because this kid is the one who is catching the eye as far as they're concerned. So let me take a step back and say, what does this actually mean? From a parent's perspective, we spend loads of money, or people spend loads of money doing sessions, ball mastery sessions, enhancing their child's technical ability. I will always be an advocate of mastering the ball because I think that's the core tenement of playing football. The ability to manipulate the ball, control the ball in multiple situations, to feel comfortable with the ball. I think for me, that is the foundations of anyone becoming a footballer. However, I would urge you not to ignore the athletic conditioning, the strength and conditioning, the explosiveness, the plyometrics. And the reality is, if you build foundations from a young age and carry on consistently through your child's footballing career, then you will see the fruits of your labor later on in the game. So that's really my understanding. Um, as things have developed, as I've spent more time in the game, I've come to realize as well that there are other things, and we see lots of reels, we see lots of conversations on social media with scouts coming on and saying things. There's loads of clips that you can find online where scouts talk about attitude, they talk about mentality, they talk about awareness, they talk about movement, they talk about decision making, bravery, what's your reaction to mistakes. They talk about losing the ball, being brave, but then what do you do when you lose the ball? Is your reaction to sulk and wave your hands around, or are you trying to get the ball back? How are you communicating with the players around yourself? How are you within a team structure? There's a lot of talk about these things, and I definitely think that they matter, and I definitely think that these are important things. But I would really, really like to explore how important they are versus technical ability and physical conditioning, especially in England. In other countries, they may prioritize technical ability and game understanding above a lot of things. But I think that that's not quite the case in the UK. And that's just my personal opinion from my experience of being in the academy football with my two boys, right? So I guess next week, what we will be doing is challenging this belief. We will be challenging this thought process. We will be challenging our guest, who is a scout at a prominent football academy, and having his thoughts and his views and his inputs on, how this is slanted and how this looks. Now, the other side of things that I wanted to touch on today is the psychological aspect of being scouted from a parent's perspective. There's a lot of emotion that goes through when you understand that a scout is going to be at a game that your child is participating in, and your aim is to try and get into academy. It can create a lot of pressure. What I would encourage, is that you don't allow that pressure to go onto your child. You don't put that pressure onto your child. I would say that my advice to you would be, don't necessarily share that a scout's going to be there, because your child is going to perform at their best at a time when they feel free of pressure. They don't necessarily know that a scout's going to be there, because that can create anxiety, it could create pressure. You want them to prepare and perform to their natural ability in the normal way that they would. So I would encourage you to perhaps not share that. I would encourage you to perhaps keep that to yourself and maybe just have your normal conversation with your child. Um, and I would encourage you to perhaps maybe what I do as a bit of advice is that I advise my child that there are two goals, and these are the goals, these are the objectives, and we set that, and it's almost like gamifying the situation, and letting them go out there and show what they can do. And it's about playing free. It's about being the word that I'm looking for is being um, confident, feeling free, and feeling able to deliver what they normally deliver on a football pitch without the added pressure of thinking that a scout is going to be, watching their every move or their every step or every performance aspects that they carry out. So that would be my tip. Don't put that pressure on your child. Keep that to yourself. Have them understand that it's just any other game. Scouts are gonna, if they are of quality, in my opinion, they're going to make their decision over a multiple of games. They're not just going to make it off one game. They're going to come and watch your child over a period of time. They're going to watch them in multiple situations, and then they're going to make a decision. Very often, what they might then do is invite your child into something called the ADS, Advanced Development Center, or scheme, where they're observing kids that they think have the potential to join the academy, and they invite them into that. I personally don't send my children to ADS. The reason I don't do that is because I feel that ADS program, which usually runs over 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, doesn't necessarily have the training schedule or program my children need for their development. So what my thought process is that I would rather keep that time um, for their program. So I would encourage the scouts to come and watch them in their matches or come and watch them at their team or in a training session. But I don't really want to put them into an ADS. I wouldn't do that. If it's a trial, then that's something completely different. You can allocate that time. But in essence, what they're asking you to do is to give up some of your development time that you're developing in grassroots, time that you've allocated to a schedule. They're asking you to give that up to go and do a generic training session with a bunch of other children that isn't necessarily specific for your child. And for me, at foundation phase, especially, like those hours are valuable to run a schedule that we've put together in terms of what my children needed for development. So that's why I've made that discussion. Um, yeah, the other thing is that clubs run, where scouts may be able to have a look at your child, is showcase games. Showcase games is where a group of boys, usually a team, but it could just be a put together group of boys, are invited into an academy to play against either children in the advanced development centers, or children, or sometimes to play against the academy teams, so that they can compare what's out there versus what they've recruited, so that they can see if there's anyone that's of a level or standard or someone that they need to take a closer look at. Now, there's mixed feelings about this, because very often when a showcase team gets invited in, they have to play a year down. So what that means is a showcase team, especially in the Cat ones, a showcase team will come in, but they'll play, and they might be under 11s. They'll end up playing under 10s against the under 10s, because academy feel that that makes it more worthwhile. I personally don't see the value in that. If you're a child at grassroots, you want to play against your own age group in order for the academy to be able to assess you fully. But the excitement of being invited into an academy center to play against an academy team sometimes can be overwhelming, and people will jump at that opportunity. So I would say, yeah, be very careful and understand what it is that you're being invited into if you're going in to do a showcase in particular. Um, so yeah, this just kind of to recap from a parent's perspective, there's nothing more exciting than understanding that a scout's coming to look at your child, because that's the ultimate goal. You're trying to get your child into academy. So one of the ways that that happens is for a scout to come and see them, play in their match, and then invite them into the academy for a closer look or a trial. In some cases, your child might have performed so well that they're so blown away, or multiple scouts have given a review of your child that's glowing, and the academy decide, listen, we need to get this child right in, especially if there are a few academies after your child at the same time for that signature. That can increase, let's say, the veracity of the clubs trying to bring your child in. So, talking from a parent's perspective, I encourage you, don't put pressure on your child. Perhaps don't let them know that the scouts are going to be there. They are at most games. They have to identify themselves to the club. So very often the scout will come and speak to the club, and then if they're doing things right, and then the club will inform the parents of the players that they were interested in, what was said, and who's interested, what club's interested, and what next steps will be. That's how it generally works. But please, please, please do not transfer anxiety onto your child. If I can ask of anything, that is the one major thing that I would say. Please do not put the anxiety onto your child. Let your child play free. Let them enjoy the game, play the game like they normally do. That's when they're going to perform the best. As I said, maybe set them some goals, set them some tasks to achieve during the game, gamify it, make it fun, and definitely just let them go and do what they do. Right? 5 qualities that parents should encourage. Again, just reiterating what I just said. Key is to get your child to enjoy the game. Get them to enjoy the game. There is no point embarking on this journey if your child isn't invested and enjoying doing this. There's just too much time commitment, too much effort, too much discipline required, that you can't embark on this journey from grassroots to academy if your child isn't loving the game or enjoying playing football. I've seen children who have amazing levels of talent who no longer play at a level because the pressure just got too much. Too much pressure from the parents because they want their child in an academy. They want to be able to say, oh, my child's at this academy and that. And the pressure is too much. It gets onto the child and the child stops enjoying football. That is very, very important. Next point is bravery. Encourage your child to try things. Celebrate the mistakes. That sounds wild. I know it does. It sounds wild. But you have to think to yourself, Ronaldo, Messi, these guys, they still make mistakes today and they are professionals. But as soon as they make a mistake, they get the ball and they do it again. I remember a quote from Pep when he was talking about Kevin De Bruyne, and he said Kevin De Bruyne is the most amazing player because he'll get the ball, he'll make a mistake, and he's like a goldfish. His mind is like a goldfish. Within minutes of making said mistake, it's forgotten, and he'll get the ball and he'll try it again. And that's a professional at the end of the game. Yet we're putting pressure on our children at foundation phase, at grassroots. We're putting pressure on them to be perfect. And what that does sometimes is it blocks your child's creativity. It blocks your child being brave enough to try things. And that's where growth and enjoyment comes. That's where confidence grows. When you give your child that environment, that freedom to be brave and try things and be creative. I look like a crazy parent on the sideline sometimes when my son maybe tries a rainbow flick or a Rabona, or he tries a reverse behind the leg control of the ball, aerial control of the ball, and it doesn't go right. And I'm like, I love the fact that you tried that, and I'm cheering, and people looking at me thinking, he just messed up. Why are you celebrating? I'm celebrating because he tried it, right? And the fact of the matter is, if he keeps trying it, ultimately, one day he's going to perfect it. I get more upset if they play safe. I get more upset if they don't try things because it means that they're playing with the handbrakes on. It means that they're not being brave, right? And I want them to be brave because mistakes are where growth is. If you're not making mistakes, that means you're not pushing yourself to the nth degree. You're not trying. So I would encourage bravery. Awareness is another thing. Be aware of other players on the pitch. Be aware when a player might be in a better position for you to share the ball, or be aware when there's an opportunity for you to take a shot or do things. Very often, this is a big bone of contention. In some academies, in some grassroots teams, you have players who just play as individuals, right? And yes, they develop their individual ability, but are they learning to play what is in essence a team game? No, they're not. But there's a fine balance because you want to develop the individual, but you also need them to understand that they are playing within a team structure. So that being said, awareness is key. Be aware of other players around you, right? Sometimes creating a goal can be as important as scoring a goal, right? And being there to help your teammate out who's lost the ball and win the ball back for your team could be equally as important as scoring a goal. If you watch the Arsenal team, I know it burns my mouth to even be mentioning this, but you look at Gabriel, you look at Saliba, you look at some of their defenders, they make a last ditch tackle and they celebrate it like they've scored a goal. That's how important it is. So be aware that there are multiple ways to contribute in a team situation in football. It isn't all about what you do on the ball, it's also what you do off the ball or how you bring others into the game. Work rate is key, absolutely key. I boys on work rate. I often say to them, you can have a bad day technically. You can have a bad day where you're not doing great things with the ball. But what you have to do, right, is you have to make sure that you are putting the effort in 100%. You got to put 100% effort in at all times. Big shout out to J Man AT. Thank you for your comment, my brother. Let me read that out. Or sister. I believe it's a brother, but it could be a sister. As always, great insight. Just wondering why anyone would tell their child that a scout is coming beforehand. You would be surprised. You would be very surprised. People do that. They put that pressure on their kids. They go, oh, there's a scout coming to watch you. And expect that that kid's just going to be like, oh, okay, thanks, dad. Oh, thanks, mum. I'll just go and play like normal now that I know that there's guys that's just watching me with their eyes on me all game. I think it's wild. And listen, I'm talking like I've never done it. I've done it, right? But what I've learned is it's pointless. So in fact, what I tell my boys now is do not worry about the scouts. Do not worry about that. You go out and do what you're capable of doing, and you will definitely get your reward. It is absolutely unnecessary pressure. Absolutely unnecessary pressure. You're right. You're absolutely right. Right. So yeah, going back to the point, work rate is critical. Work rate is one of those things that is not up for compromise. Right. You see the work rate of boys, and that sometimes is the thing that pushes it over the edge. You could have two players of equal ability, equal technical, physical ability as well, and the one that's going to edge it is the one that outworks the other. The one that the ball gets lost straight away trying to get that ball back. The one that makes a pass but thinks about what next and is making the next movement so that they're engaged in every phase of play. They're not just getting the ball, giving it to someone, and then putting their hands on their hips like their job's done. They are constantly involved. They've got the energy and they are here, there, and everywhere. Right? So please, 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 work rate important. And then for me, one of the biggest unshared factors in this game is resilience in so many ways. There's a story about Eze and him getting like released. How many times Olise was released? Without resilience, these kids won't make it in the game. And that's one of the things you have to teach them. And the only way you learn resilience really in the game is to face hardship. Things have to go wrong in order for you to find out how much you want it and how deep inside is the love and the passion for the game. Yeah. From my perspective, my son broke his leg in two places, was out for 8 months. That's when I really learned that this is one resilient kid because he wanted to get back to the level. He from the very first day in hospital was saying to me, Dad, when am I going to play again? And I was blown away, blown away. And the work that the boy did to get back to his level, unbelievable, unbelievable. So resilience is important. There's going to be setbacks in this game. There's setbacks in a match, and they're looking for it. Scouts are looking for it, from my opinion. They're looking at who reacts in a positive way. When I say positive, is who gets mad and goes get that ball back when the team loses it. Who, instead of complaining to their teammates, is there trying to put in the work, trying to get the ball back. Who's resilient when their team loses or goes behind a goal? They don't fold. They're trying to like get back into the game and win, right? Who's faced hardships, maybe been rejected here, maybe not in the starting lineup, but they've dug deep. They've gone and put the work in and they've got themselves back at the level. So for me, resilience is one of the biggest factors that is unsaid. So that being said, wow, half an hour is just flown by just like that, right? I hope you found, this perspective of scouting from a parent's perspective, useful. As I said, this is part one of a two-part mini series within the series. Next week, I'm going to get a professional scout on the show. Look out for the adverts throughout the week while we advertise that. And we'll be putting it to the scout to find out how much of all of what we've just talked about this week holds up. What do parents get wrong? What do scouts actually look for? We're going to hear it straight from the horse's mouth, right? Appreciate you over the week on the Don't Gas channel, which Raising the Game is part of. We have a number of programs every single week, right? On Tuesday, we're running past week's football review with my colleagues Boxstar and JD and other guests. That is each and every Tuesday at 9:30. On Wednesday, there'll be a PSG versus Aston Villa UEFA Super Cup final watch along. So please tune in. That'll be at 7:50. And then Thursday, something slightly different from the Don't Gas channel. It's called it's ranking 100 actors up to number 10 with Robert De Niro. So tune in for that. And then the Buck Stops is back again on Sunday next week with the FA Community Shield, which was today. Yes, sorry, I've just been communicating the wrong thing. Sorry. Let's update that. So we had a watch along today. That watch along today was the FA Cup. There's reruns of that if you want to log in, you can watch that back. But these programs are happening weekly. We're going to be back again next week with part two of what scouts are looking for. I've been Stitches. This has been Raising the Game. Appreciate you. Please like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you get notifications. All those shows that I just gave you incorrectly that run weekly, you'll be able to see because you'll get the notifications. Thank you very much. Appreciate you signing in. And yeah, share these with your network. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.